I'm Brandon Miller, and you are listening to Coach. This weekly series dives deep into the world of Clifton strengths and how they impact your daily life. Hear from certified strengths coaches on the ins and outs, quirks, and characteristics of all 34 strengths and 4 domains and how they play out in real life. Let's get started. Hello and welcome back to the Strengths Whisperer, Coach to Coach. Today I have with me Dr. Joanna Wiesinger, and we are talking about Activator. Joanna, welcome to Coach.
Thank you, Brandon. Glad to be here.
So I want to tell people where they can find you. So Dr. Joanna Wiesinger on LinkedIn is a great place to locate her. The spelling of her name is in the masthead for the publishing of this podcast. And she is an author, a co-author of a book, Turning Talents into Strengths. And then she has a TEDx talk. So Joanna, where can we find your TEDx?
Linked on my LinkedIn profile. You can also find it on YouTube. Just Google my name.
Okay, you got to tell us what it's about. What's your TEDx on?
The TEDx title has something to do with great leaders winning the war on talent. And it's definitely presented from the strengths-based leadership perspective. I hope you check it out.
Strengths-based leadership perspective, winning the war on talent. Dr. Joanna Wiesinger, we are talking about Activator today. And so listeners, before Joanna and I dive in, I must tell you, when I first took Clifton Strengths years back, 2003, this was my number one. So I'm excited, Joanna, to talk to you about Activator, to hear your journey with this particular strength. Tell us about it. I want to hear your take on it, and let's start the show.
Absolutely. This can be dangerous. 2 activators riffing off of each other. This will be great. Activator. I do remember I took the assessment around the same time that you did, Brandon, and I do remember having a bit of a aha moment. First of all, what jumped out at me was the word catalyst. And it jumped out at me because I'm a recovering PhD chemist. Chemistry was a big part of my life for a very long time, and yet I never referred to myself as a catalyst when I was a chemist. The irony of, and the beautiful thing that this assessment and this approach brought to me was that it gave me a word that truly reflects who I am. Because if you remember, Brandon, Chemistry 101, what does a catalyst do? It lowers the activation energy. It increases the speed of the reaction, allowing the reactants to then react and form a new substance without being consumed in the reaction. So you and I, that's what we do.
There is so much fun and so much intrigue in what you just said. We're going Activator from the chemist perspective, folks. I can say I have not ever been down this path with a chemist, so this will be fun. And I love that we're not burning up people in the process. That's so important for us as that catalyst. So please continue. So your journey with Activator.
Well, so let me push back a little bit. Not only are hopefully we're not burning the people who we work with. More importantly, we're not being consumed. So we are only there to activate them, to inspire them, to move them from thought to action without taking the ownership for their role in it.
So powerful. So tell us, how did that affect you? You read that, you're a PhD in chemistry, and here you are. Oh my gosh, they have a word for me. I'm an activator.
Absolutely. You know, I so appreciate this question because it has allowed me to reflect back on my life, both personal and professional, and truly some of my biggest decisions in life have direct correlation to my activator. So when I took that assessment, Brandon, I was actually at a crossroads. I was a chemist, then I stayed at home for a while, full time with our kids. When it was time to get back to the workplace, I discovered that chemistry no longer held my heart. People did. And I was completely disoriented by that. I didn't know what to do. And if you've ever pivoted in your career or your listeners have, you know what that means. And so the fact that I was able to, it so happened, I was able to take the assessment, introduced to it with my husband at the same time. It was purely, there was no professional aspect to it. It was purely for fun. And it changed everything. It helped our marriage, and we thought we had a great marriage, but it helped us reach a new emotional intimacy. It helped us parent better. And then ultimately, to your question, it helped me pivot. Once I saw the thread of being a teacher, a mentor, and a catalyst, someone who comes alongside others and nudges them towards forward progress, then within a week, I had signed up for the Gallup certification process, and probably 2 weeks later, I had founded my company 7 years ago now. So when I say that my activator is responsible for some pretty big steps in my life, I truly mean it.
I want to point out in that story, and thank you, Joanna. What an amazing journey that you went on, and the intersection of learning this about yourself and chemistry no longer holding your heart, and then you launch out on an entrepreneurial journey, which some might say PhDs in chemistry launching entrepreneurial endeavors may not happen very often. That one accomplishes a PhD and then says, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to launch a business and we're going to focus on people's strengths and help them be the best version. And so, listener, I hope that you caught the little phrase in there where Joanna said, a week later, I was signed up to take the strength assessment. Joanna, please help our listeners understand when you mention the word catalytic, how that works inside of an activator, how it works in us when decisions are made, and the way we move and the way we respond to opportunities, stimuli. Please share that.
Absolutely. I'll share what that looks like in me, and then I would love to hear what that looks like in you, because I'm sure there are differences based on our surrounding strengths. For me, there truly is, and I'm pointing kind of to my rib cage, because there really is, that's where I feel it, that sense of urgency, that sense of impatience that takes over, and it feels like I cannot help but move forward. One of the ways that I talk about it is, I remember when my youngest son and I took a college trip. This was his first time on that campus. I was familiar with the campus, but was a little fuzzy on my memory, was a little fuzzy, or where all the different buildings were. And so literally we would step out of a building, and we knew that we had another appointment, every half hour or so. I would step out of the building and then just start walking. And my brain would say, Mom, do you know where you're going? It's like, actually, I don't, but we'll ask someone. We'll figure it out on the way. Our entire day was me walking and my brain and going, do you know where you're going? And I was perfectly comfortable that along the way, I would make friends and ask questions. This was not a lack of a solid plan. I did not consider that to be a weakness or a hindrance at all. It was still time with my son and making friends along the way.
The activator's journey, where we're very comfortable just taking initiative, just making steps, moving forward. And I don't know about you, but I've had to come to terms. I've reached an age in life where I know what I enjoy, and what I enjoy immensely. And I know what I don't. And what I don't enjoy, I have learned to not like it at all. So I avoid it. And one of the things that I do not like is waiting. I don't like waiting in line. I don't like I don't like waiting behind people that aren't moving at a pace I want to move. And so I have learned that it is better for me and them at times if I just make my own way. If I just go ahead and move, I'll figure it out as I go. I'll find my path, because as an activator, I think what one of the places that we are, my mother used to say of me, she said, I never have to worry about you, Brandon. I know you're always going to land on your feet. No matter what you choose, somehow, some way, you're going to land on your feet, and then you're going to end up, turning whatever that is into something. And I'll never forget that phrase, because I think for activators, and it's helpful for those who try to follow us to know that sometimes when we're heading out, we don't always mean for you to follow just yet. Like sometimes we're pioneering, sometimes we're exploring, sometimes we're looking. And, there are times where we're not as easy to follow. And then there's times where we're very clear on where we're going and what we're doing, because we've scanned the territory, we know where we're at. I so appreciate that example, because I don't know. We'll figure it out when we get there. It'll all work out, right? That confidence you have, that confidence in, I trust my instincts. Now, do you think that's a part of that activator, that we're willing to take those risks, take those steps forward, trust we'll get where we're trying to go eventually?
Absolutely. I'm so glad that you brought that up. A couple of thoughts here. One of the biggest points of investment for me, because remember, we're talking about strengths, but there is no strength unless there's an innate talent to begin with. So what we're really talking about here is an innate talent that comes with certain degree of impatience and a sense of urgency. The strength is us now being catalyst, right? Productively bringing it to others. So the point of investment, shifting from my talent to strength for me, has been shifting from being impulsive to being intuitive and confident in my next steps. And you just touched on that. Impulsive meant that early in my career, I would splay my impatience on everyone around me. I would be the one rudely tapping, the pencil on the table if the meeting didn't start on time, if there was no agenda, if there was too much talking and not enough action. The strength, the productive strength now looks very differently. I still feel that sense of urgency and that pit in my stomach, but I no longer splay it on the team. I might be relatively comfortable waiting until the end of the meeting, kind of raising my hand saying, hey, team, great discussion. Given that we have 5 minutes left, what is one step of action that we can take right away?
The genius of the activator is getting to action and helping others get to that as well. And Joanna just did a marvelous job for you, dear listeners, to talk about the transition of knowing that one has a talent in an area. These 34 Clifton strengths help you to identify these patterns of thinking, feeling, and behaving that can be, and you said it very well, Joanna, invested into to become strengths, near flawless or consistently above standard performance. And that journey that you took, so it sounds like early career, early understanding, it was the impatience part could be put out there in front of others in a way that may not be helpful to an outcome that you or they wanted. And today you have seen progress, you've seen the journey. And so I imagine with your work, you get to weave your activator in with the people you work with. So thrivewithstrengths.com, that's where you can find Joanna's business website. Joanna, tell us what you're doing.
Absolutely. So I work with leaders who have teams, and I help them get better results with reduced friction by leveraging their strengths. So in essence, I help them team better without the wasted effort on their weaknesses. And I hope you're hearing my activator in almost every word that I just said. So we're Dallas based, but we work all over the United States. We work with fast growth companies all the way to Fortune 500. And we offer 3 specific types of services: strengths-based executive coaching for leaders, high-performing team journeys for teams, and then speaking/retreats/leadership programs for groups of leaders.
So I imagine in the executive space, when it's time for you to coach, you might meet an activator every now and again. Is that probably accurate?
Of course, yes.
it seems that this particular strength has a nose for leadership, seems to want to get itself out in front pretty naturally. So when you step into the executive space and you're coaching an executive with Activator, what are some ways that you help coach Activator to be a strength, to be a standout performing talent?
That's a good question. I pull back to the model, strengths based leadership model, which is that our best contribution lives in our strengths. And so it's up to us to get world class at our strengths, even as we're mindful of the vulnerabilities of our strengths. So, specifically for activators, I do encourage them, as I encourage myself, to bring that let's get going already sense of urgency. The vulnerability that's real and woven into the DNA of those of us who have this strength is that we can be at times too much for others. And I see it by virtue of my other strengths. I read people very well. I notice little passing emotions on their faces or shifting of their body. And I see when I'm starting to come at them with this influencing energy that is simply too much. Maybe I'm not giving them enough time to think through my question. Maybe I'm offering too many questions. Or maybe I'm simply just, I have dialed up my activator so much that they just feel crowded. And so for me and for those I coach, those are the two aspects that we go after. Be brilliant at that intuitive, confidence yielding, wielding aspect of the activator, and be mindful that you don't always have to have it turned up all the way.
When I think about coaching someone new to the term activator, so they've been an activator. Now we're present to a way to describe it. We've given you the gift of the words, of the meaning, and now you can ascribe meaning to behaviors. And so activators that are just coming into this knowledge and realizing, oh, that's what that is. That's that feeling I get when we're not moving something forward. That's that toe tapping impatience. That's the need I have to get us from here to there and get out in front and make sure we're getting accomplishing. And so there's coaching at that level, right? We're brand new, we're growing. This is a new adventure. And then there's coaching seasoned activators, those who have been in the chair for a while. They've had some coaching, perhaps they're learning this, and now they're wanting to, I love the term world class. They want it to be a world class strength. So I want to ask you, when it's new to someone, the day that you saw it in 2003 and I saw it there, and it's, oh my goodness, here it is. Here's the term. Here's the description. I literally, Joanna, thought someone was following me. I was reading the description in the book, Now Discover Your Strengths, and I thought, did somebody climb in my brain? How do they know I think like this and I talk this way? And it's credit to Dr. Donald Clifton and the team that spent the decades putting this assessment together. And so please, when you're working with someone, they just took this for the first time, found out they're an activator. What are some tips that you give them, steps that you encourage them to take?
One of the things that I notice is oftentimes the challenge for them is to flip the script on the soundtrack that they have gotten used to. And that soundtrack might have been established by their family, by their loved ones, saying, "You too impatient. You don't know how to slow down. You don't think things through." That's a very negative soundtrack that most likely is not serving that person well. So, the beauty of this assessment and discovering these talents is that they can flip the soundtrack and go from wrong to strong, meaning that that sense of urgency, that impatience, that comfort with risk taking, when invested, yields beautiful contributions to the team. I once was with a team of directors, and there was only one of them who had Activator in his top 5. And as we were discussing that strength, and they were so fascinated by it because no one really understood it except for Tom. And when I asked the team, hey, describe Tom to me through the lens of the Activator, and they all pointed and said, oh, he's the one who throws the bomb in the middle of the room, so to speak, meaning he does not mind being a contrarian at time. He is also the go-to when the team isn't sure whether it's time to go or still time to strategize and ideate. So they look to him to say, hey, Tom, what do you think?
Flip the soundtrack. Listeners, if today you are an activator and undoubtedly you've heard along the way, slow down, you're going too fast. You're not thinking things all the way through. You're rushing. No doubt. Perhaps Joanna, you heard some of that coming up. I certainly did. I certainly did. And there is some truth to it because you are going too fast at times and you are rushing in. However, you don't want to throw out the gift with the development. Just because you're growing into something doesn't mean you're wrong. It just means you're learning how to take something that is very powerful. This is a catalytic strength. It changes things. You cannot add an activator into the room and not have change. It's not possible. It's a strength that will bring energy, it brings force, it brings movement, and maybe it's a gift that it's one of the more rare strengths. So there aren't as many of us who have it, but you know when you have them. And so I really want to focus on that for a moment. Flip the soundtrack because I'm going to quote some of the needs. And this is the resource, dear listener, that you're going to hear about at the conclusion of the show. Our sponsor is going to talk to you about how to be a good teammate to me. And this resource provides you with the contribution of your strengths, so what you bring, the very best of what you offer, but what it needs to be successful. And Joanna, let's listen to a couple of these for Activator. So clear pathway to movement, less theorizing, more action.
Everything happens while I am moving, in movement. And you referred to that early on when you were describing yourself growing up. I can relate to it. I rest in movement. I think in movement. I work well while moving. And so that was one of those big ahas for me that even for Team Wiesinger, our marriage, on a Sunday when we're supposed to relax, for me, a relaxation means let's go for a very long walk, which is not my husband's go to. It wasn't. He now honors the activator in me, and that's what we do. But it's a big deal to have that, to make the connection and not resent it, but rather lean in.
Others to be direct and decisive in their language.
Interesting. Tell me what your reaction to it is. Is that something that you
I am one that would prefer just tell me what you think. Just give me the feedback. A phrase that I'll use. Just tear off the band-aid because my activator will be direct. I will try to sometimes circumvent the inevitable long drawn out. Let's work our way to the real point of why we're sitting here today and say, can we just cut the chase? Can we just get to this part of things that need to be discussed? And I tend to appreciate when people bring that to me too.
Yeah, I love that. I think that I have grown. It's been a point of investment for me. I wonder if our surrounding strengths are coloring our activators, because I would say that with my maximizer, with my positivity, I like that little tidbit at first that acknowledges what's going well, what we can celebrate, acknowledge the wins, and then jump into the heart of the matter.
Dear listeners, flip the soundtrack. If you're listening today and you are an activator, we're encouraging you to take note of the amazing strength that you have. If you work with an activator, hopefully today you learned some ways that you can build and grow your understanding with them and help them to be the best they can be while you are doing yours as well. Joanna, thank you so much again for joining us today. Tell us one more time. So, LinkedIn, TEDx, Thrive with Strengths. Got all three?
You got it.
Okay. And then the TEDx talk, you can find that on YouTube or through her LinkedIn page. Dr. Joanna Wiesinger, and we talked about Activator today. Thank you so much for joining me on Coach to Coach.
Thank you, Brandon.
Thank you for tuning in to the Strengths Whisperer Coach to Coach. Please feel free to reach out to Brandon to partner with 34 Strong for collaboration opportunities to serve your employees or clients together. If you are a strengths coach, lead a strengths-based team, or are a fan of strength, we invite you to receive our complimentary resource, How to Be a Good Teammate to Me, Understanding My Contributions and Needs. Email Brandon_Miller at 34strong.com to connect, and he will gladly share this resource that will continue to unlock the power of strength.